Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Nicci Chats 2. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicci Stewart. I am the founder of a company called The Y Effect that specializes in leveraging sustainability practices for building brand equity. And this is a podcast that really gives women a platform to change perspectives, to share their views and share their ideas and their thoughts. And each week I interview people that I think are interesting to chat to and have got something useful to say. So this week I am thrilled to have Noreen Cesareo with me. She is the founder and principal of a company called Market Accents. She's an international thought leader and strategic marketing and communication specialist. But for today's purposes, the most important things that I'm focusing on is that she is a trade and enterprise specialist, and she's a champion for gender economic empowerment for women and girls education. So, of course, that just, got me excited straight away. Noreen, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you very much. I am really excited about being here. I've been following what you're doing, and I think it's a wonderful way to get thoughts across and to actually understand more about what is making us women entrepreneurs tick, actually. So, yeah, great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So, Noreen, you originally from Malta, you're living in the UK now and working internationally. Do you want to just give us a little bit of background on yourself and history and how you ended up where you are and why you feel so passionately about gender empowerment?
Of course. As you said, I do come from the Mediterranean. I am from Malta, which is probably one of the smallest islands in the Med. You may know it if you go on holiday. I do live in the UK, which makes quite a difference, although today it's a lovely blue sky day. But I came to this country in 1998, having spent all of my growing up years and most of my career in Malta, actually. Mm-hmm. I've always been in marketing and communications, and I've always been interested also in giving back. So that has always been something that's run throughout my career and when I was growing up. I came to England doing marketing and communications for a global company called Thomas Cook. Mm-hmm. And I used to be in financial services and travel, two very great fantastic areas. Travel has always become high on my agenda, as with everybody, I guess. And financial services, well, it makes the travel go around. What is there not to like? So I settled down and, life happens and recessions happened and dot-com boom happened. Mm-hmm. And I moved from Thomas Cook to Travelex and from Travelex to Barclaycard, where I was actually part of the team that launched the chip and pin in the UK. So you can say I've spent quite a bit of years here in the UK working in financial services, international foreign exchange, Forex, but also quite deeply still connected with travel and other nationalities and the whole Commonwealth, really, because in actual fact, Malta is part of the Commonwealth and that's featured quite well in what I do. And you mentioned children's education, girls' education, and that's probably what triggered off a lot of what I'm doing now. So early on, I got involved with a fantastic, small, but really great and far-reaching charity called the Commonwealth Girls' Education Fund. And we educate girls in Commonwealth countries that are really able, but financially very, very poor. So if they didn't have a helping hand, they would never get an education. They'll probably be married off by the age of 11. They'll be their life is already all mapped out, and they certainly would not be sitting here like you and I talking about anything. They'll be at home looking after a family with multiple kids, or probably dead, or raped, or all the other injustices which happen to people coming from very poor backgrounds who unfortunately don't have opportunities. So through this charity, got quite involved, and I am now actually a trustee. But that opened my eyes to the fact that women don't have the same opportunities everywhere. And economic empowerment is something that actually is there to get women respect and make sure that there are opportunities. So we're not talking just of equality. We can't be equal in everything. Biologically, we're not equal. So there's very little chance we can be equal absolutely in everything. But if we have respect and if we can actually empower ourselves, we can be looking for the opportunities and actually contributing and participating in economies and in countries, which then brings me nicely on to the next part of what gives me great passion and joy, which is the economic empowerment. So I started, I've joined a couple of networks in the UK when I came here, and I opened up my company, Market Accents, which I've had for the past 20 odd years. And Market Accents has been almost a platform for me to get engaged in these fantastic networks. And through them, we started realizing that there is so much we don't know. We don't have gender segregated data. We don't know really how many women are impacted negatively by everything that happens. And you start realizing, you know what, there isn't economic empowerment. Even though I'm living in the UK, we still don't have economic empowerment across everywhere. And in fact, I think COVID really brought that to mind. How many women had to give up their jobs, go back and be carers, or be carers, do the jobs, do the cooking, do the shopping and everything else. And it's like, that isn't really economic empowerment, is it? So there's been a lot of work done there. And I'm also then started getting heavily involved in the trade side, because I am actually, I'm sorry to say this, quite excited about trade. I know it sounds a bit dull, but trade does take
It's
the work
fine. Nerdy
out.
passions are welcome here. We all have our
Fantastic. So
nerdy
I'm a trade
passions. It's
geek.
fine.
Exactly. But I see trade as being a form of communication. Ever since we've been communicating, we've been trading. I trade ideas, you trade goods. You know, they work across. And there's a lot of work which needs to be done in terms of opening up borders for more women to be able to actually access those opportunities. So about a year ago, I opened up the UK chapter of the Organization for Women in International Trade, which is OIT, one of the logos you can see on top of my head on the other side. And that through that, we're doing quite a lot of initiatives with fantastic support networks of women. I'm also a We Connect member, which is a certification organization that says I'm a women-owned organization and allows me to use the women-owned logo. So I've been doing a lot of work on this, and I must say it's fantastic, because you start seeing the impact you have on people and the fact that they can realize, you know what, there are opportunities out there for me to go for. So I don't want to go too much on my passions, because I know you have a whole list of questions and we can talk forever. So back to you, Nicci.
Thank you. I mean, I love what you said about empowering ourselves, because I think that's a big thing. And it seems to be quite a common theme that's coming up in my world at the moment, is this notion of expecting people to do things for me because I'm a woman. That would be great, but it's not going to happen. So, I mean, already I love this underlying theme of self-empowerment. I think it's wonderful. But so let's get into the nitty-gritty. I mean, you've spoken about international trade and what you've done around that the steps that you've taken. But why do you think it's important for women to trade internationally? Because I've dealt with a lot of female-owned businesses, a lot of women who are, even possibly working in corporates. And the notion of going out of your country, out of your region, it can be quite overwhelming. So I mean, why do you think it's an important step to take?
Of course. Well, let's put it this way. None of us are an island. Well, some of us may be an island, but we don't trade alone. And trade is what helps us to grow, to get to new ideas, and to actually connect with the rest of the world. So trade is part and parcel of our life. Whatever we're eating, we're using, we're doing, a lot of it has been imported unless it can actually be found locally. So from that starting point, you already are being impacted by goods and services that are traded. You are part of that whole supply chain. You're part of, whether you're a consumer or you're actually a producer, and participating in getting those services or their products across. So whether you are an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur working in corporates or even working in small companies, you want to sell your services and goods. Now, a lot of us today don't realize, but the fact that you have a website means you are, from day one, a global company. Why? You can be found by others. So unless you just ignore everything else and say, sorry, I'm only dealing with a market that's 1 mile across, I will ignore all other customers, then you're opening up and widening your markets. Now, as a lot of services, we're looking for new markets, we're looking to expand, we're looking to move into market spaces where we can have a voice. And a lot of us will find that because of certain strengths that we have within our countries, be it IP, best practice, raw products, which other countries and other economies want, then we have something we can trade. And the male part of the equation knows this and goes after it. And we can also start seeing that we may be able to actually sell at a premium internationally
Mm.
because we are unique in what we're doing in that market, whereas in our local market, we may be one of many. And we find that we can't actually expand the market that much. So there's always a good side towards looking at growing the market and exporting. So if you have hopes to grow the market and to expand beyond your shores, international trade is one area you're going to be considering. And even if you're just talking about moving across a smaller market, like in Europe, a lot of
Mm.
countries
Mm.
are close to each other. You can be trading internationally very, very quickly within a trading block because you can be selling your products from Italy to France to Germany. You're trading across borders. You're still trading using the same currency, but
Mm.
you are trading in different markets. So you have different systems of what happens there. You have different buying patterns. You will have different distribution systems. So there's a whole world you need to get yourself acclimatized to, and it isn't just as simple as saying, oh, okay, I'm just going to go in and put them there, because it is a same trading block, but it's not the same market in every country.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there are a lot of benefits, and obviously there are quite a lot of cons. And people will start telling you, "Oh, you got to think about the costs, and you've got to think about customs where you have it, and tax or VAT, and
Yeah.
all the logistics, and getting them across transport. And then there's all the pain. And what if the products aren't right? What if I'm not paid because they haven't paid me
Mm.
internationally? How do I know these are kosher?" There is a support system to actually help through all of these. And in fact, we can talk a bit about them a bit further on. So
Mm.
you don't, it's worth knowing what you're going in for, but don't close the door because it seems daunting, because there is a way out of it.
Okay, because that was actually going to be my next question. What do you think stops companies from taking this step?
Well, fear of not being paid, fear of
Mm.
goods not arriving, fear of complaints reaching back and then having to deal with them, costs increasing which they haven't considered, tax which they haven't taken any account into,
Mm.
um, their IP being stolen by foreign hackers or foreign well, thieves who could come and take your products
Mm.
and or copy them and sell them in the market space where you don't really have
Mm.
copyright or enough trademark protection. So there's a lot to be considering before you just go into it. But then these are also the issues you have here in your own market. If you're not
Mm.
safeguarding your IP, you will have issues. If you haven't packaged your products properly, they will be damaged by the time they arrive. If you
Mm.
haven't checked on who your market is that you're selling to, they could never pay you. You'd be left with having invested a lot of money in producing, say, a service, giving them a service, providing them with one, and then never getting paid. And this is something that a lot of small companies probably do suffer from. And
Yes.
maybe we
Mm.
don't really talk about it because you go like, well, who's going to help me? I've got to take it on the chin, move on. It was a bad deal and find something else.
Mm.
With international trade, especially if you're working with your Department of Trades, with the Chambers of Commerces, there's a lot of networks that can help so that this doesn't happen, or at least provide you, signpost you in the right area to go to join the network so that you can find the right market for you to trade in.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, as you were talking about those concerns, I was just thinking, but a lot of those things can happen if you're trading in a local market. I
Exactly.
mean, there's fear of not getting paid, fear of not delivering, of complaints, of, I mean, I know people who trade very locally here in South Africa and are still not necessarily aware of the tax implications.
Yes.
So it's actually one of those things that can happen either way. Mm.
Yeah. And once you're in for it, if you have a product that can sell or a service that can be exported and provided in another country, why not? You're closing off
Mm.
markets that could help you to grow. Obviously, it's a lifestyle choice. If as a small business, excuse me, you prefer to stay within your own confines,
Mm.
that is entirely your choice, and it's fine. Nobody is all set to grow. But if you want to grow and you are growing organically within your own market space, you probably will find after a while that you need to get more to keep that going, especially if, say, your product is not something that I'm going to be consuming on a weekly or a monthly basis. So how
Mm,
many of them are you going to be selling, which will actually provide me with a business that is growing and that will actually sustain me? In order to be sustainability, you have to look at growth, and you have to see where the growth is going to come from. The world is very connected. Global and digitalization have simply
mm,
opened up borders in a way it did not exist about 20 years ago. So for
mm,
you not to take the opportunity to even consider it, you're being very myopic, and it's almost like you're putting blinders on and saying, "Nah, I work in an international market, but you know what? I'm only selling next door. Sorry, bye bye." It's silly. It's an opportunity that you should consider. As I said, don't go into it blindly, because it is
mm,
not
mm,
something you just pick up and go. You do need to apply the same principles for market entry as you would in your own country. Plus, consider, do you need to have a representative in country? Will you be going in JV as you grow? Are you just going to consider distributing your products from your own website and dealing with international um, queries as they come in? Do you
mm.
translate? Do you translate your website? Do you have a call center that is set up to trade to deal with the international markets?
Yes.
There is a lot, but this is all part of being in the marketplace.
Nothing worthwhile is ever easy.
No, no, no. But the rewards can be great. And also, you
Mm,
can do this through collaboration. So you're actually helping yourself to ease some of the pain of actually going into those new markets. And how do you get to collaborate? You can look for collaborators through your networks. I mean, we met through a network.
mm,
So we're
mm.
already expanding across. Find networks like We Connect, like OIT, like a lot of the other women-owned support networks that will actually help you. They've been there. They can tell you what there is in the area where you want to go. They may even say, let's go into business together. And with your goods and my services, or both of our goods, we develop a stronger proposition and we can sell in both sides of the market. So there's a lot that
Mm,
comes out of really going back to your networks, and also using what I mentioned before, the chambers of commerces, the trade departments in countries, which are all eager to help women get in on that supply chain, because they've done research. There's a lot of research that's been looking at the big gap that exists in the market, in the global economy, because as women, we're keeping ourselves small and we're not growing. We're
mm,
not
mm.
sustaining ourselves to be able to withstand these systematic shocks which come along, like recessions and COVID and all the others, which disrupt the whole global supply chain. Because, like
Yeah.
it or not, we are in the supply chain. Whether you're a consumer, whether you work in a corporate, whether you are running your own business, you are within that big global market space. And you have to participate. Otherwise, you will just be reactive and being impacted by whatever comes your way.
Mm, mm. I love that. So, Noreen, I think before we get into the kind of the practicalities and are there particular businesses that work better or not, there's just something that I want to touch on briefly. When we spoke initially, when we did a bit of a briefing, you mentioned frameworks like the Buenos Aires Declaration. So, can you just talk a little bit more about those kind of policies and those kind of frameworks that are actually being put in place by countries, by international organizations, specifically to support the growth of women trading internationally or even just building businesses? Because I think it's important for people, for women to understand that there are actually all these big picture things that are actually behind you and supporting you.
Exactly. Let's start from a basic premise that has gone
Mm,
around the world for a long time, and it's proven it's not true. Trade is not gender positive.
mm,
So, in the world of trade, which was developed a long, long time ago, we've been trading ever since we could migrate from one place to another. It's mostly revolved around the people who traded, the traders that were mostly
mm,
men. So the impacts on them, you as a woman at home, you're a producer, you're a consumer, you are getting the goods, but you were still probably growing all the products at home in order that you can actually go out and sell them. So
mm, mm,
throughout history, there has been that situation and that context. Over the years, a lot of the governments, especially the WTO, the organizations, United Nations, WTO,
Yes.
UNCTAD, they have all realized that there's a gap that needs to be plugged, that we're losing out by not having women participate in this great environment. And in Buenos Aires, there's the Buenos Aires Declaration, which a lot of the member organizations are signing up for. These are countries stating that they will actually provide better, they will build into their policies statements that allow women to be able to positively walk away with something out of these policies that are done with the trade agreements internationally. I'm trying not to go into too much heavy words. Nobody wants to go into them. Let us just say that it was asking the countries to sign up to it, to say that they will actually start looking at a more gender positive way of trading.
Okay.
Now, a lot of these have signed up, but they haven't actually implemented much in their own
Okay.
country and trade agreements. So this is a moving picture, and it's changing, and more countries are signing up to it. More countries are trying to actually put in gender positive clauses in their trading agreements. And in fact, even the UK, we're looking at these, and there's been recently, you may have heard about MC12, which happened just few days ago, although they did not actually have sessions included in the main agenda. There was a session by ITC, which was talking about women-owned businesses and showcasing women-owned businesses, and this was for members. So there's a lot of spotlight coming through on having women-owned businesses, enterprise, and women and care, anything that will positively impact gender in that aspect, that will actually be included.
Okay, so there is
It sounds as waffle. I was trying not to go down legal
no, it was perfect. If I could understand it, then
I'm
was
glad you did.
it was it was not legal jargon.
Good.
But I think it's just important for people to understand that there is growing momentum behind this, and there are organizations. I mean, I know certainly We Connect in South Africa, and I would imagine it's been like this, kind of all over the world where they are operating. They've been very fundamental in having procurement policies shifted around payment terms. So very, very simple things like that, where actually small, and I mean, this would benefit all small businesses, but businesses cannot operate in a supply chain environment when they're getting paid on 30, 60, or 90 days. That's just not practical. So simple adjustment like that, you actually almost excluding small businesses out of the market, because I can't afford to carry your corporate costs for 3 months. That's my business gone.
You've just touched on one of the most burning issues we especially are looking at here in the UK. And in fact, even from the UK APPG, I sit on the board, I'm chairing the trades task force there. And some of the issues we are actively looking at are the contract terms and the payment terms. Because, and this isn't just women-owned businesses, but and it affects SMEs in general. So you're dealing with corporates within the supply chain. You start looking at the payment terms, and you find you're actually subsidizing a global corporate to sometimes up to 6 months. And especially if you are involved in a supply chain where there's tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, and you're further down the food chain, you probably aren't going to get paid until a year later. And that is absolutely crucifying for any small business. Now, we know the fact that a lot of women-owned businesses tend to self-fund their growth. We know that they tend to not go and ask for a lot of financing. So when you have a business which is already very tight and flying close to the wind, doing something like that is truly crippling, and it's almost insanely bad. It should not happen. So we're trying hard to push for better payment terms. And also, I think this is something that should be highlighted globally, because these big corporates, they deal with companies all over the place, whether it's the UK, South Africa, Canada, India, Asia. So it's not right that they are actually not paying within at least a month at the most, not 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. That's way too much. It will put us out of business.
Absolutely. And I think there's a level of education that's required. I almost want to say at a deeper level, sort of that the level that I don't know whether it would go above or below procurement, but when you're dealing with a specific contact person or specific generally middle management, a lot of the time I've seen it with people who've been in corporate and moved into their own businesses. They suddenly start rethinking their own behavior when they were in corporate. You sent me an invoice, I signed it off, and it went off into the ether. And beyond that, well, you know, and it's ignorance.
It is.
I get my salary at the end of the month, and I'm not necessarily aware of what's happening to that invoice because I don't understand the implications of it. And suddenly, when those people are at the other end, they go, oh my God, I wish I had have actually just followed up with that person, just made sure that Noreen, who is my senior manager, actually signed this invoice off so that I could get it to procurement 2 weeks quicker.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there is that level under which a lot of departments can sign off. You know, if it's
Mm,
a smaller spend, it doesn't need to go to the purchasing department, and it can
mm,
be
mm,
paid off very, very quickly. And let's put it this way: a lot of large companies, they would be dealing with smaller businesses on those small jobs, on those,
mm,
smaller
mm,
retainers. It could be under 100,000, it could be under 50,000. It may not sound a lot to them, and it's petty cash, but for us, it's our lifeline. And I need that to
mm.
pay off what I've probably bought and paid up ahead before I did the
Yeah.
job to actually deliver the job. And we work a lot with contractors and freelancers who also need to be paid. So you see
Mm,
how many people you're impacting by delaying payments. It's not
mm,
right. Yeah. And we
mm.
need
It's
to
an
highlight
interesting
it in
topic.
every country, I think. So we're doing that
Mm,
here in the UK. It's going to be something we're pushing very hard on. And hopefully
absolutely.
everywhere around the world picks up the banner and let's go for it. Same as the gender pay gap. It's not
Mm,
right that we don't have that same well, we don't get to the transparency because nobody will talk about what their pay actually is. So you never know
mm,
what the true gap is. And there are companies that are beginning to now have to report, and the reporting is running across a lot of countries in Europe, although it's not the same everywhere. And also, it's not the same level down. So a lot of the larger corporates would be declaring what their pay gap is, but then it
mm.
doesn't go down into the larger and the medium, which are probably the companies will be dealing with.
That's interesting. But I think before, and maybe we should have a follow-up session and really delve into the
I think there is. We're touching
delve
on so
deeper
much. It's
into
so
this,
exciting.
into these topics. But so I think let's get back to our international trade and focus on a little bit more around what. So, what are some of the practicalities in your self-confessed trade nerd state? Are there
I love
I
that.
just, yeah, I love it when people are passionate about things. It makes me very happy. Are there certain services, products, certain companies that perform better? Are there ones where you would say be a little bit more cautious? I'm sitting here, I work in branding and communications like yourself, with a specific lens on sustainability. Where do I start? I mean, you mentioned building up connections through trade, through chambers of commerce and those kind of things. Like, what can I wake up and do like tomorrow that will kickstart my international trade journey?
Perfect. Well, I think the first thing I would actually say is let's look at the sectors a lot of women owned businesses tend to be in. And
Mm,
let's
mm,
start from the bottom, so the MESMEs, and move up. There is a massive lack of women in male-oriented industries such as construction, such
mm,
as transportation, such as maritime, the actual, shipping, and all
mm,
these
mm,
trades which have been traditionally very male-oriented and remained traditionally male-oriented. They're still in that situation. They're opening up, they're better, but I don't know how many girls at school will look around and say, oh, I know what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm going to be a trucker. Probably it's not on every girl's wish list, but it is important that at that very young age we start opening their fact to the eyes. They can
mm,
be in any sector they want. Now our A probably more traditional way has been to go down the services route, personalized
Mm, mm,
services, the beauticians, the salons, IP, teaching, doing training, marketing and comms is unfortunately one of those that is very traditionally one that women find themselves in, because we are good communicators and we find
mm,
ourselves naturally drawn there. However, STEM has started now. There's been a lot of push towards getting more
mm,
girls into STEM. And we
yes.
know that nearly every country is crying out for the women to actually move into life sciences and STEM, because there is a
Mm,
need to expand those sectors to start innovating. And they know that to get the innovation, they need to have all genders involved. They can't just remain the way they're growing up. So, if as a women owned businesses, I am coming from the more traditional retail or fashion or
mm,
um, as we said, services sector, business services, marketing services, teaching. I mean, teaching is probably one where you would find, the teaching and the training has been traditionally where there's been a lot of exports down on the services
mm,
side.
mm,
But we know there's more areas that actually are being looked at in terms of us moving into other markets. If we just take education, the trend is for edutech. So it's coming
yes. Mm,
digital means, and that is actually a service that can go across borders very, very quickly, and maybe something you haven't thought about, but that has a very, very good market, very good growth curve, and you should be looking at it. But let's say you are in a space where you have a product, and the product you think can be sold in another country very easily with probably very little packaging. Then the first thing you should be doing is looking at research in the markets where you think you're going to be going from. You're talking of South Africa. There's the same language if you go for English speaking countries. So you know that your product probably doesn't need that much customization in terms of
mm,
languages to be able to move there. But then I will ask you, what about your standards? Do you need to have any standards done for you to be actually able to sell into other markets? This could be ISOs, it could be a health
mm, mm,
accreditation, it could be uh, on products. You're in sustainability, so we know there's a lot of demand for products that actually meet sustainability standards. And
yeah.
these are very much more important when you're looking at going into the new markets. So, under basics, these are market entry level. I'm not talking of anything that's going beyond that. Then
Mm,
you have to see, where will you actually be selling it? Where is your market space? Who will be buying this? Is it something that is easy for you to deliver? So if it's a product, you have to think about how you're going to get it there. If it's a service, let's take yourself, Nikki, again, you want to come over here and do sustainability marketing and communications. How
mm,
are you going to get into the space? Do you know anybody here? And that is where you start going through your networks to start doing that
mm,
primary desk research. So we're not actually talking about spending a lot of money. You're connecting with the people you know or who could connect you to others within networks. The chambers are excellent for this. We Connect is a great space. OWIT is another great space. There are a lot of other women chambers that run across, that you can just put out a simple query. I want to expand the market space. Where do you think is the best place for me to go? Is it London? Should I be looking, if you're coming to the UK? Should I
mm,
be going to Birmingham? Should I be going further up north? And we think like, hold on a bit, you're doing sustainability. We know there's a lot of interest that's come out of COP26 last year. So in terms of sustainability, it's very much high on the agenda. So you could probably
mm,
take your pick and go nationwide. And but we're delving down and getting deeper into where your actual market is, because the more knowledge you have, the easier it is to get in. Now, the
mm,
trade departments, if you had to go through your own trade department to come here, will actually tell you, we could put you in touch with some companies who may be asking for this, because the government departments in every country are always looking at getting that exchange going. So they will help you, and they may actually even open up doors. There may be a trade visit happening where you could join and go and see, and you'd be traveling at subsidized prices to be able to go and visit the country and do trade visits and first-hand research.
mm,
Always you need to do research. Do not go into any space without real knowledge of how to sell, how to price it, what the distribution is going to be like, how are you going to deliver it, and how will you actually continue to manage to grow the market. Because once you're actually going into a market, you need to be a bit focused on it. If you're just dipping your toes, what you're actually doing is exposing your IP within the market space and allowing a competitor to look at it and go like, you know what, I could be doing what she's doing. So it's very important that before you actually go in, and that's another thing that comes into it, protect your own IP, trademarks, and copyright, and then start maybe looking for collaborations with local people that you can trust coming from the networks, you know. So there's a lot that you can be doing to move in that is not going to cost you a lot of money, because you can use the networks to actually go and find this research. So I haven't told you get on a plane yet, although you could if there's a trade visit. But if you just go to your local chambers or local networks, they're building up the connections as you actually go along. Does that sound? I'm trying to put it in terms.
No, that's great. I think that's very practical. And it's funny what you said about going to the UK. My friend Tanya, who is actually watching us, and she said this is a really interesting discussion. Thanks very much,
I'm
Tanya.
glad. Thank you very much, Tanya.
So Tanya is a South African living in the UK. And the funny thing about South Africans is we don't know the difference between the UK and London. Everything in the UK is London. So
there's a great big country out there as soon as you step off the train.
When you start talking about the UK, it's London.
Well, if she's there, let me just bring an example in. So this year we've got the Commonwealth Games. These are happening in Birmingham in July. There's a lot of activity, especially if you're a member of the Commonwealth, around opening up opportunities for trade within the Commonwealth itself. And in fact, Shogam is taking place at the moment in Kigali. There's the business forum there. They're discussing all these opportunities. So if you are a Commonwealth country, now is the time to start looking at who can I connect with, because the opportunities start coming up as people start talking about them. And what you need to be doing is expanding your network. And this is what these events and activities actually allow you to do. So if you are interested, the best bet to do is maybe speak to, and I'm going to mention this and give them a plug, because Deb is one of my VPs on OIT, and she's also the president of the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, and there they have the Greater Birmingham Commonwealth Chamber of Commerce. So going through there, they can actually help. And also, obviously, as a Commonwealth country, you have a High Commission within the country, within the UK. So you can also use the High Commission to ask for introductions to local businesses or to see what opportunities are there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, Noreen, how would you start? Are all of these kind of opportunities, do you get this? Because you are just loaded with information. I think that's what I love about you.
Like an encyclopedia.
I'm scribbling down so many notes as you write. You know, always say I interview people for myself, not for anybody.
I think that's excellent. Well, I myself trade internationally. So I give business coaching through a program I'm involved into companies in the MENA region. I have customers and clients in Europe, in Malta and in Italy. I have clients who are from the US and that I actually service within Europe. So I have been involved in international trade for a long time. And to be honest, when I got into international trade, I didn't know I was doing international trade. I never even thought about it. For me, they were just another customer who doesn't happen to be here. I'm getting paid in dollars, so on comes on my Forex hat. I need to actually make sure I'm not losing out on exchange rates and see how I'm going to be paid. But then, you know, the payment terms we're talking about, that's when I started realizing there's more pain here in terms of me dealing internationally, because they're tying me to legislation that is not necessarily under the jurisdiction of the UK, but is under the jurisdiction of the US. Hold on a second here. How does that, how does that run? And I think this is what started me thinking I need to get more into understanding how I can be trading internationally and actually not be at the losing end.
I love that. And, you know, there's this kind of common theme, and it doesn't matter what I speak to people about, because I really have had a very broad range of conversations with interesting people. But there's always this, and I feel like I say this every week, there's this underlying theme of curiosity.
Yes.
Always about finding out more. What are the implications of, I mean, even if you and I are consulting online, are there implications for me working in the UK, even as a South African registered business? Is, you know, kind of always what comes beneath this? Is there more? Is there more I can learn? You know, it's kind of that beginner's mindset around everything.
And this is where I really signpost people to go to the, like we're talking the UK. So go to the government's website to trade
Mm,
here. There's a lot of information there, and I'm not going to go into details because there seriously is a very well detailed site. Contact the Department
mm,
of Trade, whether it's through social media or email or the website. There's the chambers themselves, and they are
mm,
particularly loaded with documentation and information on what you have to do. I mean, they probably are your first call, to be honest. And they can
business.
also
Mm,
help you to look at which zones or areas within the UK you should be looking at. I mean, that I talked about life sciences, I talked about tech. Maybe you want to be situated or speaking to business parks where there's a lot of companies that do this, especially if you're going in with the consultancy. So
mm,
it's getting into that next layer. As you said, curiosity
mm,
is what is actually driving this. You and I both do marketing and comms. For me, understanding your customer and understanding your marketplace is vital. If you don't have that knowledge,
mm,
you know what, it's going to be very hard trading. You're not just going on eBay, Amazon, or Etsy and putting up your product and saying, hey, I'm
mm.
here, come and buy it. No, we need to be a bit more sophisticated about how we go about it,
Yes.
because we want to
Mm,
grow. The whole idea of selling is not just to have a little market here and a little market there. You need to be sustainable. You need to make sure you can actually service them. I mean, thank God our services are services that can be delivered anywhere, because here we
mm,
are sitting
mm,
on a streaming platform, and I could actually be coaching, and you could actually be coaching as well, or
mm,
delivering
mm,
services. So we don't necessarily need to be in country. But if you do have a product and you're exporting, maybe you want to have a representative here. Maybe you need to start thinking of having quarterly visits to visit your market space, to talk to more distributors,
mm,
to talk to more retail outlets. So I'd still send everybody back. Go to the government sites, check out Companies House to understand if you want to set up a company here. Bank accounts, there, we can put you in touch. If you go through OIT or go through or WeConnect, we all have very good contacts with our
mm,
banks.
mm.
And there are banks that actually work with women-owned businesses very well. So
Yes.
they can be helpful in helping you to set up bank accounts here, international bank accounts. It's all part of your toolkit in order to be able to move here and actually trade positively.
I love that, building up a toolkit, and that's a
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. And that is what you're doing, isn't it? With all these things we've
Mm,
talked about: IP, copyright, customs, legislation, even
mm,
invoicing, and looking at what you need to put in. Are you VAT registered? Do you collect VAT if you're dealing with a UK company?
mm,
Are you under a certain threshold? Do you need to register locally? Do you need to employ
yes.
people?
Mm,
What happens if you contract freelancers here or contractors to just sell for you? But
mm,
then it's similar to
mm.
starting in your own country, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's so
So
it's
it's a
all
toolkit for capacity building.
exact. Oh, I love that. Toolkit for capacity building. I think that's wonderful. I'm so going to steal that.
No,
So
no, you need to. That's copyrighted. That's got my name.
should not have said that on a public forum, but
Well, it's stoned. Everybody heard me. I've got copyright. Excellent.
Noreen, when you do reach out to chambers, just on like a very, very practical level, is it best to contact the, do they have marketing people? Do they have, who's the kind of individual that generally I would
Yeah,
want to reach out? Because that's, sometimes I find with these websites, they'll have like an info at email address, which I'm always very suspicious of.
yeah. I
And
would go. Sorry, I would go to the membership area.
okay,
I mean,
okay.
yes, they're going to sell you a membership, but then if you're going to get everything in one place, it's worth it. And you're also
Mm,
joining
mm,
the network. If you go
okay.
on their website, a lot of them will have international trade or export, and a lot of the
Mm,
information is freely available, probably without needing to actually be a member.
okay. Mm.
So do a bit of your research online. There's a lot
Okay.
that is available there.
Mm,
And you will find the signposting coming. I think if you Google, and even if you just send an email or contact a lot of them on social media, do not
okay.
ignore the power of social media, because it is manned,
Mm,
and you may find a quicker response actually than one that's coming to a mailbox, which needs
that's
an
good
official
advice.
person
Mm,
typing back. Whereas
mm,
if you just want a web link to go and find something, just ask a question on any of the chambers, Twitter,
mm,
LinkedIn. And also, LinkedIn is another area. You will find quite a lot of groups. that are worth looking at and that can actually signpost you and direct you to where you need to go. I mean, I think the biggest problem there is in all of this is people don't know where to look because the information is there. It's knowing what you want to look for and knowing where to look for it. And that's why I always go back to the networks, because some people have been there, they've done it, they'll just show you the way.
Absolutely. And another thing that I'm becoming more and more aware of is this value around social capital and what it actually means and how you can use it. But it does require that, I mean, I agree with you, people don't know where to find that information. But then there's also taking that next step of they don't necessarily know how to reach out. And, you know, I'm very extroverted. I'm very good at just reaching out to people and starting to talk to them. But for a lot of people, it takes a lot of guts and it takes bravery to actually put a message or an email out there to go, Noreen, I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. You know, can we maybe set up a quick coffee chat? And yes, then it's your prerogative to say yes or no. But at least there's that initial step of taking action, which is so important.
Yeah. But let's put it this way. We're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs. So hopefully, if you are an entrepreneur, it's very hard to remain shy and not reach out because your market will never grow. And yes, you may not like networking in person. You may find it bad to sit in a webinar and put your camera on because you're actually quite shy at being seen. But reaching out via social media these days is almost the easiest way to connect. You don't even need to formulate any long email. It's, hi, this is Noreen. I like what you're doing. Can we chat for a while? And people would generally respond. It's very hard for people to ignore it. And if they do, they'll come back to you probably within about a week or 2 weeks because they were busy. That's fine. But do not reach out because of feeling bad about doing it. Because I come back to what I originally said. We're all communicators. We're all living together, and we all want to actually work and trade together. So it's what makes the world go round, really.
Absolutely. And I must admit, I have found, particularly the women in my network internationally, most of whom I have never met in person. I have only ever met online, but I have found them to be incredibly welcoming and incredibly helpful. And I can honestly not think of a single instance when I've reached out to somebody and said, I'd love to just connect. It's not a salesy email. It's literally just a connection. I'd like to reach out and find out more about you and what you do and look for opportunities. Personally, I've never had anybody come back and say no.
And in fact, if I can pick up on something you just said, Nicci, and this is important, connecting isn't selling and being salesy. If people come to me and say, oh, hi, here I am, this is what I do, let's speak, I want to sell you my product, I won't even bother answering back. I seriously don't react. And these are the do's and don'ts of social media and growing your network using social platforms. People are happy to connect. We need to bear in mind that all of a sudden everybody's circle of connections has multiplied, because what happens is you come on a call like this, I've got 6-7 people that want to connect with me. I want to connect and I accept their connections and I engage, but it will go at a slightly slower burn than what they may be expecting, purely because I have to fit that into what I'm doing now. And it's important to bear in mind with everybody, because there is a social etiquette. Do not sell, do not attempt to engage and be salesy up front, because nobody will react to you. And social media, selling socially, is a skill, and people want to get to know people first. We buy from people. We don't buy from people who just come to us to sell. Sometimes the very word salesperson, we look at the person and we see customer engagement on their profile and you go, oh God, they're going to sell me something. So be upfront and say, I'm interested in what you're doing. I want to connect. And I would say, yeah, that's fine. Happy to engage. Because you're moving me away from, yes, I've seen that you could potentially buy my product, so I'm sending you this introduction, and here's my CV, and here's my profile, and here's my brochure. And you go like, whoa, info overload. That's too much. Let me get to know you. Let the relationship develop. And
Absolutely.
and then we find we probably will work together, because it's a relationship.
That's a fantastic piece of advice, and something we can add to the capacity building toolkit.
Exactly. Social selling is the way to go. And in the world of digital, that is what we'll all be doing. So I would say, ladies, upskill yourself now, learn how to do it. Don't feel shy, because if you do, it's like wearing sunglasses in a dark room. You won't be able to see who's winking at you and wants to be friends.
I love that. Noreen, this has been incredibly interesting and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. It has been so much fun chatting to you. Do you have any final thoughts except for wearing sunglasses in a room and seeing
Well,
who's
that's funny
winking?
because I do wear sunglasses all the time, but mine are sighted. So that's my excuse anyway. No, for all the people listening, I would say don't shy away from looking at moving beyond borders. Be strategic how you go about it. So make sure that you actually got a good base in your own market before you extend out. And if you need to go for financing to help you extend the market, don't be shy about asking. If you have a good business case, then businesses will, banks, finances will listen to what you're saying. And actually, if you have a stellar idea, they'll be wanting to invest and to take you across borders themselves. So consider your proposition, look at the market you're moving into, get your toolkit together, move slowly, but don't not move at all.
I love that. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Noreen. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself and I really appreciate the time that you've given me and to this topic. And thank you to everybody who has joined us live and who will be watching the recording. Please do send us your thoughts, send us your comments. And if you're interested in getting Nicci Chats 2 in your mailbox, please sign up for my mailing list. Noreen, where can people reach you? Where's the best place for them to look for you?
You can get me on social media. So it's Market Accents across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up under Noreen Cesareo or actually Market Accents or Noreen@marketaccents.com. Please do connect. I may not get back to you immediately, but I do get back. And I love growing my network. So yes, please. And you know what, Nicci, this has been a great, great opportunity. Thank you very much for the invitation. I've so enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And I can confirm she definitely does get back to you.
Yes.
I can give you that credit. Thank you very much, everybody. And Noreen, thank you very much. Please, everybody, stay safe. And I will catch you all next week on Nicci Chats 2. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.